The internet is full of gurus in the preposphere and people that have no clue what they're talking about, and they simply regurgitate what they hear from another YouTuber or Instagrammer or TikToker or have read in an article, whatever the case might be. And I'm assuming you can gather by the thumbnail what we're talking about in this video. And I want to dispel a lot of the myth that's surrounding the whole Greyman thing, because there's a ton of myth surrounding the Greyman theory. To try to get people to do something that really is not even necessary to do. And I'm not really sure. I know there's Greyman talk in some old spy novels, and I think that might be where it came from. And if you're the kind of person who is trying to fit into a situation or an area that is unfamiliar to you or that you don't really fit into, then you would have to employ some Greyman tactics to maybe make that happen. Like, for instance, myself, if I was to go over to, let's just say, Italy, I'm not going to fit in very well because I don't look Italian and I don't look like I belong there. So I may have to do some Greyman tactics if I wanted to blend in and not stand out. But even at that, I'm still going to stand out to a degree. Now, I can mitigate a lot of that, like I said, by employing Greyman tactics. But in day-to-day life, and especially here in America, the Greyman is a fallacy. It really is. And I've been teaching seminars on self-reliance and preparedness for many years. I mean many years. Way before I started my business, my FIELD-TAC Self-Reliance, which is now FIELD-TAC Readiness, back in the mid-90s. And in seminars, I would tell people the same thing. And I would ask these questions. I would say, I would have people raise their hands. I would pick 3 people out in the room, in the crowd. And I would say, the last place you went was, whether it's a gas station, convenience store, grocery store, whatever the case might be, tell me 3 people that you saw and what you can recall about those people in those stores or places where you went, restaurants or whatever. None of the 3 could recall any people that they saw at those last places. I'd call on more people and ask them. And out of every 10 people that I would call, I would get, it's roughly 1 in 10 who could recall even one person that they saw and what they were doing or what they were wearing. And that was only because they were wearing something that really stood out to them. I can recall in one seminar, a gentleman I called on, he recalled one guy because he was wearing a jacket that had a big cross on the back with some scripture written on it, and it attracted his attention. But other than that, he couldn't recall the guy's height, his hair color, his weight, nothing. All he could recall was the jacket. That's not a lot to go on, because if that person takes that jacket off, there's no identifiers, because all you were focused on was the jacket. Now, this was years ago. Let's fast forward to today, where things are way worse. People are walking around with their heads buried in their phones, headphones on, earbuds in, not paying attention, daydreaming, talking on the phone. I see it all the time, everywhere I go. Women, especially in stores, talking on phones or standing at the basket looking at their phone. And I'm sure maybe they're looking at a shopping list, which, I understand. It's no different than if you had a piece of paper as a shopping list. But people are more distracted today with everything going on than they ever used to be. So getting someone to remember you and what you were wearing or what you were doing, it's almost impossible. It really is impossible. Now, me personally, I not only am trained to watch people and recall their height, their hair color, their weight, what they were wearing, shoes, pants, shirts, jackets, scarves, hats, headphones, earbuds, whatever, earrings, jewelry. I also have an eidetic memory, and my mom has an eidetic memory. So my recall is, I mean, I can recall dates, I can recall things that happened to me. I can recall where we lived when I was 6 months old. I can recall the apartment we lived in when I was 6 months old. And that's how I came to find out, because, you know, we used to call it photographic memory, but then years later I found out that it's an eidetic memory. I mean, I could recall to the detail the apartment we lived in. And my mom was like, "You're only 6 months old. There's no way." I can remember when I was 2 months old, my dad, who was not supposed to be at my aunt's house, holding me in his arms inside the front door at my aunt's house. And I recalled what he was wearing to my aunt. And my aunt said, "Your dad had the coat that I recall was a black and white tweed overcoat, wool overcoat, because that's what men wore in those days, because he worked in a bank and he wore a suit, and he had this bulky gray overcoat, and it was gray, black and white tweed." I can recall it. I can still recall it. I can see it as clearly now as I did when I was 2 months old. So I have that gift, if you will, of being able to recall. But that's not the norm for most people. So if you're the kind of person who's into the preposphere and being prepared and self-reliant, you may need to train yourself to have those skills of recall. Because if you're the kind of person who's prepping for SHTF or bad things to happen, you might be in the middle of something bad happening, and you're going to need to recall those things. Now, that's going to entail quite a bit of training, because it takes a lot of skill to overcome adrenaline, duress, stress, and those things all cause psychological things to happen, like tunnel vision, sweating, loss of memory. Because when you see things happening, a lot of times one or two things can happen. For most people, things slow way down. So things seem like they're taking a lot longer than they actually are. For other people, they speed up. It seems like things happen in the blink of an eye when it may have taken actually longer than what you're recalling. So you have to train yourself. On the other side of that coin, if you're trying to be the person who's a Greyman, then as long as you don't do things like make any brash or obnoxious movements or gestures or actions when you're out in public, people aren't going to remember you. If you're not loud and, overly boisterous with your voice when you're in public, people aren't going to remember you. If you just act in a calm, normal tone, speak in a calm, normal tone, nobody's going to even give you a second look. Unless you're wearing something that's completely outlandish or something that's highly recognizable, like the gentleman with the cross on the back of his jacket and the scripture, people aren't going to notice you. Because people are too self-absorbed nowadays. They're too busy with their own lives. I walk past people all the time going in and out of stores. They're on their phone walking past me. Don't even look at me. I look at them because I'm an observant person. I want to know the people who are around me and what they're doing. Is the person walking past me, are they going to whip out a knife? Are they going to whip out a pew-pew? Or, who knows? Are they going to whip out a club? Are they going to turn around and try to grab me? Or, these are all things that we don't know. But I am the observant one that pays attention. So as long as you're just fitting in, doing your daily routine, nobody's going to notice you. They're not going to care. because people, again, they have the attention span of a gnat and they're too self-absorbed in their own world. And especially people today who are walking around with their headphones or earbuds in on their phones, not paying attention. It happens all the time. I see it in stores. I see it in gas stations. People at gas stations, they got earbuds or headphones on, and they're standing by their vehicle, just kind of leaning on the vehicle, holding the gas nozzle, looking down at the gas, not paying attention around them, not paying attention to anything that's going on other than the nozzle sticking in the gas tank, that they're just standing there watching and thinking to themselves, oh man, I wish this was faster. I know what they're thinking. I can see it on their face. And those are the kind of people that become victims because they're not paying attention. And they're not going to notice you at all. They're too self-absorbed in what they're doing. So Greyman's not a real thing. It's not a real thing. It's a fallacy and a fantasy that has been brought up in the preposphere to try to make people think that there's something to being a gray man, or some purpose where you need to be a gray man. But you don't. You don't. I mean, if you, in the comments below, tell me 3 people that you saw in the last place you went, whether it was a restaurant, gas station, let's say Walmart, grocery store, whatever. Tell me 3 people. And I'm not talking 3 people that you work with, because obviously you're going to be able to recall people you work with. You're with them every day. If you're working someplace, generally 5 days a week, I'm talking about you walk into a gas station, convenience store to buy a soda, or to buy a slice of pizza, or you walk into the grocery store to shop, or you're walking into Wally World to shop, or you're walking into Home Depot or Lowe's. Tell me 3 people that you recall the last time you were in one of those stores, what they were wearing, what they looked like, their height, their weight, hair color, everything. Because unless you're a person with an eidetic memory, which is a very, very low percentage of the population that has that, you're not going to remember, because it's not important to remember, because there wasn't anything out of the ordinary that made you need to remember those people and what they were wearing and what they look like and everything else. It's just not a thing. Now, some of the other things that'll stand out is if it's, say, 80 degrees in summertime and someone's wearing a jacket, that might get your attention, because generally people, when it's 80 degrees, are wearing tank tops or t-shirts, or something light and airy that isn't going to make them really hot. So wearing a coat, like even a jean jacket, people are gonna be like, wow, it's so hot out. Why is he wearing a jacket? On the other side of the coin, if it's 9 degrees outside and someone's walking around in t-shirt and shorts, that's going to draw attention. That might be perfectly normal for you, but it's going to draw attention, and people will remember that, because that is way out of the ordinary of how people are dressing in 9-degree weather in the middle of winter. So if it's cloudy and you're wearing sunglasses, people might go, it's cloudy, why is the dude wearing sunglasses? Or if it's extremely bright and sunny and everyone's wearing sunglasses but you, that might attract attention. If you're walking around squinting because it's so bright and the sun is hurting your eyes, it might draw attention. People thinking, why is that idiot not wearing sunglasses? It's so bright out here. So there are certain little nuanced things that can attract attention. But again, if you just are doing the normal go with the flow things, and you're not doing anything outlandish or outrageous, or that is screaming, hey, look at me, nobody's going to know you. Nobody's going to know you. Now, to that point, if you think you're being tracked by somebody because you're somewhere, things are going on, maybe someone is looking at you because you have an expensive suit or expensive clothes, or maybe they think you have something they want and they're tracking you for that, or you're being surveilled for another reason. There are things you can do to more blend into the crowd so that you don't stand out and you can lose the person who's surveilling you. If you, like, I'm 6'2", and so in a lot of crowds, I I tend to be a little above other people in the crowd, height-wise. So if I was being surveilled, a simple thing that I could do is hunch my shoulders and kind of bend my knees so I come down into the same level as everybody else that I'm walking with. Because one of the ways to surveil somebody is that every individual person has their own cadence and rhythm to how they walk. Their head bob is going to be consistent, but everybody's is different. Even twins that have the same exact genetics are going to walk different. They don't walk exactly the same. They have a slight variance in their cadence and rhythm to how they walk. So if you think you're being surveilled, you can change simply by doing that. If you're a shorter person and they're locked onto you, you could rise up on your tiptoes and walk to make yourself look taller. You could maybe limp a little bit or change the way that you're walking so that your cadence and stride is different and your rhythm is thrown off and they lose sight of you. If you're in a crowd and you do duck down and you weren't wearing a hood and have one, put your hood on and you could stand back up. Now you have a hood on, you look different. Or if you were wearing a hood, you could duck down, take the hood off, and then you'll look different. Same with if you're wearing a hat, take it off. If you're not, put it on if you have one with you. There's all these little nuanced things that you can do to fit in, blend in, if you're being tracked or surveilled, and throw off the person who's surveilling you. It's, there's all these little tricks that you can do for these types of things. So to recap before I end this, don't do anything different. Don't do anything out of the ordinary. There's no such thing as Greyman. There's no such thing as, blending in, unless you're in a situation like I mentioned earlier where, say, you're in a city full of protesters. Maybe they're wearing all black. You wear all black. You throw on a hood. You walk, put your hands inside the pocket, just kind of walk like, look like one of them. They're not going to bother you. You're not going to stand out. There's just a whole host of things you can do to not blend in and not stand out. So you just be yourself. That's all you got to do. Just be yourself. And you will be the gray man. I mean, that's what the gray man is. Everybody every day is the gray man unless they're purposely trying to stand out. If they have bright pink hair, bright blue hair, bright green hair, they're wearing really bright clothes that have, big slogans on them or sayings on them, okay, those kind of people are going to be noticed, but they're trying to be noticed. They're trying to get attention. That's what they're doing it for. They want attention. They didn't get enough attention as a child, and now as an adult, they're trying to garner attention. That's all that's about. But if you're just I don't want to say normal person, but I guess for lack of a better term, if you're a normal person, just go about your day and no one will think twice about it. And no one will give you a second look. So if you found this information helpful, please give it a like, share, and subscribe to the channel. As it says in the front, this channel is not monetized on YouTube and never will be. I'm completely independent and viewer supported. I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link that's down in the description if you're interested in supporting my efforts and helping me bring more content to you like this. I would appreciate it, and I will give you a recognition if you do. But that's it for this one. So always remember to plan, train, prepare, and defend. I appreciate you watching. I thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.